Red Dead Redemption is not a happy game. On the surface, it's a Western adventure. Shoot bandits, ride horses, save damsels, bring justice to the frontier. But beneath that dusty veneer of cowboy heroism lies something far darker. This is a game about death, decay, and the inevitability of obsolescence. It's about a man trying to outrun his past while the world conspires to drag him back into the mud. It's about how violence begets violence, how redemption is a lie we tell ourselves, and how the American dream was built on mass graves and broken promises. This isn't horror through jump scares or gore, though there's plenty of both, but through what it says about humanity, morality, and the brutal machinery of progress. This is a game where the protagonist's death is inevitable from the moment you press start, where the government you work for will betray you, where every act of heroism is undercut by systemic corruption, where even the supernatural elements seem less like fantasy and more like metaphor for America's rotten soul. Let's talk about why Red Dead Redemption is one of the most unsettling games ever made. Not because it's horror, but because it's honest. Armadillo should be a thriving town. It's positioned on a main road, has access to water, serves as a regional trading hub. When you first arrive, it's bustling. Drunk piano players in saloons, merchants hawking wares, gunfights in the street. It's everything a Western town should be. But if you pay attention, you notice the coughs. People bent over, hacking into handkerchiefs. Civilians stumbling through the streets, feverish and weak. The doctor rushing from house to house, overwhelmed. Cholera has come to Armadillo, and it's killing everyone. The game doesn't make a big announcement about this. There's no cutscene where the mayor declares a state of emergency. The plague is just happening in the background, constantly. You walk past corpses being loaded onto carts. You hear widows weeping. You see the doctor, a nameless, exhausted man, trying desperately to save people with inadequate medicine and vanishing hope. The horror isn't just the disease, it's the game's commitment to showing its aftermath. Bodies pile up faster than they can be buried. Graves are dug in mass trenches. Coffins run out, so corpses are wrapped in burlap and thrown into holes. The living are too sick to properly mourn the dead. Children wander the streets looking for parents who are already in the ground. And you, as John Marston, can't do anything about it. You can't cure cholera. You can't save Armadillo. You can walk through this nightmare as it unfolds, helping the doctor deliver medicine or shooting rabid dogs, but ultimately the town is doomed. This isn't a problem you can solve with bullets or heroism. It's a structural failure, a consequence of poor sanitation and contaminated water in a frontier town that grew too fast without infrastructure to support it. The Doctor is one of the game's most tragic figures precisely because he's so unremarkable. He's not a named character. He doesn't get missions dedicated to his backstory. He's just a man trying to do an impossible job. Every time you see him, he looks more exhausted. His dialogue grows more hopeless. "I can't save them all," he mutters. "There are too many." And he's right. Armadillo's plague is a death sentence for a significant portion of the population, and the game forces you to watch it happen in real time. People you've seen before, shopkeepers, bartenders, civilians you've helped in side missions, they disappear, dead, buried in unmarked graves because there's no time for proper funerals. The class dimensions of the plague are especially grim. The wealthy can afford to leave town. They pack up and flee to safer settlements. But the poor, the labourers, the prostitutes, the drifters, they're stuck. They can't afford to go anywhere else, so they stay, and they die, and their deaths are treated as inevitable casualties of frontier life. Armadillo's plague is chilling because it's realistic. This is how frontier towns died, not in dramatic shootouts or Indian raids, but from contaminated water, from disease, from infrastructure failures that turned thriving communities into graveyards. The Old West killed more people with dysentery, cholera and typhoid than it ever did with bullets. And the game doesn't let you look away. You need to return to Armadillo repeatedly for missions, supplies, bounties. Every time you come back, it's worse. More bodies, fewer living people. The saloon gets quieter, the streets get emptier. It's a town dying in front of you, and all you can do is buy ammunition from Herbert Moon and ride away. By the end of the game, Armadillo feels like a ghost town even though people still technically live there. The energy is gone. The hope is dead. What remains is a husk of a community limping toward complete collapse. And if you play Red Dead Redemption 2, set 12 years earlier, you see Armadillo in its prime, bustling and alive. Which makes RDR1's Armadillo even more haunting. You know what it used to be. You witness what it becomes. The environmental decay in Red Dead Redemption extends far beyond Armadillo's plague. The entire game world is dying. The buffalo are nearly extinct. You see only a handful scattered across vast plains where there should be thousands. The land itself feels exhausted, drained, used up. This isn't accidental. The game is set in 1911, at the tail end of the frontier era. The West is being civilized, which means the ecological destruction is nearly complete. The buffalo were slaughtered to near extinction as a deliberate strategy to starve Native American populations who depended on them. Millions of animals reduced to a few hundred survivors hiding in remote corners of the map. The horror is subtle. There's no dramatic apocalypse, no zombies, well, not in the main game. Just a slow fade, a gradual collapse. The world dying, not with a bang, but with a whimper. It's the death of a way of life, of an entire ecosystem, of possibility itself. And the game forces you to participate in this decay. You hunt animals to extinction for crafting materials. You kill outlaws, making the world safer but also more boring, more controlled. You work for the government, helping them bring order to chaos, civilization to wilderness. You're an agent of the very force that's killing the world you inhabit. The game's environmental storytelling is relentless. You pass abandoned homesteads, their owners dead or fled. You ride through ghost towns where weeds grow through floorboards and windows stare like empty eye sockets. You find mass graves from forgotten conflicts. The land is littered with evidence of failure, of dreams that died in the desert. There's Tumbleweed, a town that was once prosperous and is now completely abandoned. Buildings stand empty. No NPCs spawn here except bandits who use it as a hideout. It's a monument to the fragility of frontier life. One bad year, one dried up well, one failed harvest, and an entire community vanishes. The game's commitment to showing decay extends to the sky itself. The sunsets in Red Dead Redemption are beautiful, but they're also tinged with melancholy. You're watching the sun set on an entire era. The frontier is closing. The wilderness is being fenced and parcelled and sold. And men like John Marston, violent, independent, skilled in ways that are becoming obsolete, have no place in what comes next. The game's environmental decay also functions as a countdown. You watch the world diminish in real time, towns shrink, wildlife becomes scarce, Even the human population feels like it's dwindling. By the end of the game, the world feels emptier, quieter, like someone turned down the volume on life itself. The environmental decay in Red Dead Redemption is unsettling because it's honest about what winning the West actually meant. It meant ecological catastrophe. It meant the extinction of species. It meant the disease-ridden death of towns that dared to exist on the frontier. Progress has a body count, and the game makes you count the bodies. Red Dead Redemption is a game that takes place on stolen land, and it doesn't try to hide this fact. But it also doesn't confront it directly. The Native Americans in the game exist mostly as absents. Their genocide is complete or nearly so, their cultures reduced to remnants, their presence in the narrative peripheral at best. And this absence is itself haunting because it reminds us of what civilizing the West actually meant: ethnic cleansing on a continental scale. In a game set in 1911, you barely encounter Native American characters. There's Nastez, a native guide who helps John briefly in Mexico, but he's a helper NPC, not a fully realized character. There are a few random encounters with native people on the margins of the map, but they're decorative, background elements in their own homeland. This scarcity is historically accurate in the most horrific way. By 1911, the frontier wars were over. The reservations were established. The genocide had largely succeeded. The indigenous peoples who survived the massacres, the forced relocations, the deliberate starvation campaigns, they'd been corralled onto the worst land and told to stay there. The game's time frame means we're looking at the aftermath, the epilogue to ethnic cleansing. But the most haunting aspect is what the game doesn't show. There's no mission where you learn about the systematic destruction of native cultures. There's no character who talks about the residential schools that kidnapped children and tried to beat the culture out of them. There's no acknowledgement of the Trail of Tears, the Wounded Knee Massacre, the decades of treaty violations and land theft. All of that history happened before 1911, but it's treated as ancient history, settled business, not worth discussing. This mirrors real-world historical erasure. America built a mythology of the West that conveniently forgets the genocide required to make that West possible. Red Dead Redemption engages with many uncomfortable truths about the frontier, but this is one area where it largely falls silent, and that silence is deafening. The buffalo are another form of absence. You can find a few scattered across New Austin and West Elizabeth, but they're rare, endangered, on the verge of extinction. The game treats this as a historical footnote. Oh yeah, the buffalo are almost gone, without digging into why or what that means. The buffalo weren't just hunted for sport or leather, they were exterminated as a military strategy. The US government encouraged buffalo slaughter specifically to destroy the resource base of plains tribes. Kill the buffalo, and you starve the people who depend on them. It was genocide through ecological warfare, and it worked. By 1900, there were fewer than 1,000 buffalo left in North America, down from an estimated 30-60 million. The game lets you hunt buffalo. You can shoot one, skin it, sell the pelt. The mechanics are identical to hunting deer or elk. There's no acknowledgement that you're participating in the extinction of a species that was deliberately driven to near annihilation as part of a genocidal campaign. This is particularly chilling when contrasted with how the game treats other forms of injustice. John can intervene against Herbert Moon's racism. He can save Mexican civilians from Melendi's brutality. but there's no mission where John helps Native Americans reclaim stolen land or confront the government about treaty violations. Their suffering is background radiation, ambient injustice that the game observes but doesn't interact with. The game also lets you roleplay as a settler on stolen land without consequence. Beecher's Hope, John's Ranch, is built on land that was once native territory. The game never asks where the land came from or who it was taken from. John just owns it, and that's treated as normal, even heroic. He's building a future for his family on the graves of the people who were there first. Rockstar clearly knows how to tackle difficult historical subjects. They confront racism, they explore government corruption, they show the brutality of colonialism in Mexico. But when it comes to Native American genocide, they pull their punches. Maybe because it's too close to home, too foundational to American identity. You can criticize the government, but you can't question the right of settlers to settle, because that would unravel the entire mythology the game is built on. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the game's silence on this subject is intentional, a mirror held up to American culture's refusal to reckon with indigenous genocide. We'll make movies and games about every other injustice, but this one, the foundational crime of the nation, we treat as background noise, something that happened long ago, nothing to do with us. But it is to do with us. Every acre of American soil is stolen. Every town, every ranch, every railroad is built on land that was taken through violence, fraud, and betrayal. Red Dead Redemption shows you this reality without comment, and perhaps that's the most honest thing the game does. It doesn't pretend the theft didn't happen. It just shows you the world the theft created. The absence of Native Americans in Red Dead Redemption's narrative is unsettling because it reflects real historical erasure. By 1911, Native peoples had been systematically removed from public consciousness. They were on reservations, out of sight, no longer a threat to expansion. The game doesn't show ongoing genocide because by that point the genocide was largely complete. What you're seeing is the world the genocide created. A West where white settlers can build ranches and towns and lives without indigenous people getting in the way. This is the heart of the horror. The game is set at the moment when ethnic cleansing has transitioned from active violence to passive maintenance. The hard work of removing indigenous peoples is done. Now it's just a matter of keeping them removed, contained, forgotten. Red Dead Redemption presents this world without comment, and that silence is more chilling than any explicit violence could be. If the world is rotting, then so are the people in it. Red Dead Redemption populates its dying frontier with characters who embody different forms of decay: physical, moral, spiritual. These aren't cartoon villains. They're recognizable human beings who've been twisted by isolation, fear, and obsession into something monstrous. If the strange man represents death and fate, then Seth Briars represents the grotesque decay that waits for all of us on the other side. Seth is Red Dead Redemption's most viscerally unsettling character, not because of what he does, though that's horrifying enough, but because of what he represents. The collapse of humanity into base obsession, the way grief and loneliness can curdle into something monstrous. You meet Seth in the graveyard near Tumbleweed, and the game wastes no time establishing that something is fundamentally wrong with this man. He's emaciated, filthy, his eyes wild with mania. He lives among graves, sleeping in coffins, surrounded by the dead. He speaks to corpses as if they're old friends. When John encounters him, Seth is digging up a grave, looking for treasure he insists criminals buried with a body decades ago. But the treasure is a lie, Seth tells himself. What Seth is really looking for, what he's been looking for the entire time, is a woman. Not a living woman, a dead one. A corpse named, well, we don't even know her name. Seth calls her his love, his beauty, his sweetheart. He talks about her the way a romantic talks about his soulmate. Except his soulmate is a rotting corpse he's dug up from the ground. The game never explicitly uses the word necrophilia, but it doesn't need to. The implication is clear and stomach-turning. Seth has formed a romantic attachment to a cadaver. He dug her up, took her to his underground lair, and has been living with her ever since. When John helps Seth find what he's looking for, treasure that Seth immediately forgets about because he has his treasure in that coffin, Seth gleefully runs back to his hole in the ground with the corpse. This is played for comedy in some scenes. Seth's babbling, his mania, his obliviousness to social norms. Rockstar leans into dark humour here. But beneath the comedy is something genuinely harrowing. A man so consumed by loneliness and mental illness that he is fully disconnected from reality and morality. What happened to Seth? The game gives us fragments. He mentions a wife. He mentions losing everything. He mentions betrayal. Somewhere in his past, Seth was a normal man with a normal life. Then something broke him. Maybe his wife died and he couldn't let go. Maybe he was always unstable and frontier life pushed him over the edge. Maybe the isolation of the desert, the endless stretches of nothing punctuated by graveyards and ghost towns, drove him insane. Whatever the cause, Seth represents the endpoint of loneliness. He is what happens when a person is so starved for connection that they manufacture it from corpses. He is the dark mirror of John Marston. Both men are desperate to return to a woman they love, but while John fights to get back to Abigail, Seth has given up on the living entirely. The most harrowing mission involving Seth is exhuming and other fine hobbies, where John helps Seth dig up graves looking for treasure. At one point they open a coffin and find a decayed female corpse. Seth becomes visibly excited, whispering, "She's beautiful." John, disgusted, tells Seth to focus on the treasure. But Seth isn't interested in gold anymore. He's found something more valuable to him, a corpse fresh enough to satisfy whatever compulsion drives him. This is the moment the game stops being funny. This is body horror, psychological horror, sexual horror, all wrapped into one grotesque package. Seth's love for this corpse is not metaphorical. He is sexually and romantically attracted to dead flesh. And Rockstar doesn't flinch from showing us this. They let the moment sit, letting the player marinate in discomfort. Seth also serves as a commentary on the American West's underbelly. The frontier was full of men like Seth, outcasts, drifters, madmen who couldn't survive in civilized society and fled to the edges of the map where there were no laws, no witnesses, no one to hold them accountable. The West wasn't just cowboys and adventure. It was also dark, desperate men doing dark, desperate things in the middle of nowhere. Seth's graveyard is a monument to death. Tumbleweed, the town near his lair, is a literal ghost town. Abandoned, decaying, haunted by the past. Seth fits here because he's also a ghost, a remnant of a man, hollowed out and filled with compulsion. He doesn't live. He exists in a state between life and death, surrounded by corpses, becoming a corpse himself. There's also a theological dimension to Seth. In Christian theology, desecrating graves is a sin that offends both the living and the dead. It's a violation of sacred ground, a disruption of the natural order. Seth doesn't just dig up bodies, he lives among them, sleeps in their coffins, makes love to their remains. If the strange man is God or death, then Seth is the blasphemer, the heretic, the man so corrupted that even hell might reject him. And yet, the game treats Seth with a strange kind of pity. He's pathetic more than evil. He's not violent. He doesn't hurt anyone, alive anyway. He's just broken, irreparably, grotesquely broken. When John leaves him at the end of their interaction, Seth is grinning ear to ear, clutching his treasure, the corpse, babbling about how happy he is. It's a horrifying image, a man finding true happiness in the embrace of the dead. Seth Briars represents the endpoint of isolation, the point where loneliness becomes madness, and madness becomes monstrous. He is the game reminding us that the frontier wasn't romantic. It was where damaged men went to rot, and sometimes they took the dead with them. Herbert Moon's general store in Armadillo is the first place many players shop when they reach New Austin. It looks normal. Barrels of apples, shelves of canned goods, a friendly shopkeeper ready to sell you ammunition and medicine. But listen to Herbert Moon for more than a few seconds, and you realise something is deeply wrong here. Herbert Moon is a paranoid, hateful, bigoted man, and Rockstar doesn't hide it. In fact, they plaster his beliefs all over his store. If you look at the walls, you'll see posters with slogans like "Beware the Jewish conspiracy" and "Negroes are natural thieves" and "Catholics are agents of the devil." These aren't Easter eggs tucked away for players to find. They're prominently displayed, impossible to miss. Walk into Moon's store and listen. He'll mutter about the Jews controlling the banks, and the Pope sending agents to poison the water supply, and the Coloreds plotting to overthrow civilization. He speaks these paranoias as facts, as obvious truths that any intelligent person should recognize. And if you, as John Marston, try to push back, or even just exist in his space, Moon treats you with suspicion. Are you part of the conspiracy? Are you working for them? Herbert Moon represents a very specific type of American evil, the small-town bigot whose hatred is wrapped in the language of self-protection. Moon doesn't see himself as hateful. He sees himself as vigilant, as one of the few people brave enough to see the truth about the world. In his mind, he's the hero of his own story, defending good Christian Americans from the shadowy forces that want to destroy them. This makes him more unsettling than a cartoon villain. Moon is a realistic depiction of how racism, anti-Semitism, and xenophobia function in ordinary life. It's not always burning crosses and lynch mobs. Sometimes it's just a shopkeeper muttering conspiracies while selling you beans, casually poisoning the atmosphere with his worldview. What's particularly chilling is that Moon is a functional member of society. He runs a successful business, people shop at his store, kids buy candy from him. The town doesn't shun him or run him out. He's just there, accepted, normalized. Because in 1911 America, men like Herbert Moon were everywhere. His beliefs weren't fringe, they were mainstream. Casual anti-Semitism was common, racism was encoded in law, xenophobia was considered patriotism. Rockstar's decision to make Moon a shopkeeper, a person John has sworn to interact with to survive, is brilliant. You can't just avoid him. You need him. You need his supplies. And every time you buy something from him, every time you hand over money, you're complicit in sustaining his hateful little empire. The game forces you to engage with this bigot, to nod along while he rants, to be polite because you need those health tonics. There's also a dark comedy to Moon's paranoia. He's afraid of everyone: Jews, Catholics, black people, Mexicans, the government, outsiders, strangers. He's built an entire worldview around the idea that he's besieged on all sides by enemies. And yet, he lives in Armadillo, a dusty nothing town in the middle of nowhere. No one is coming for Herbert Moon. No one cares about Herbert Moon. His entire life is spent terrified of threats that don't exist, hating people he's never met, defending himself from enemies who aren't there. But here's the grim truth. Herbert Moon is right about one thing. The world is just changing. The frontier was just closing. The old ways are dying. And men like Moon, white, Christian, paranoid, are being left behind. Not because of a Jewish conspiracy or a Catholic plot, but because history is moving forward and they're clinging to the past. Moon's hatred is a coping mechanism. He can't accept that the world he knew is disappearing, so he invents villains to blame. It's easier to hate an abstract other than to confront the reality that progress doesn't care about your comfort. The West is being civilized. The government is consolidating power. Corporations are taking over. And small-town shopkeepers like Moon are becoming obsolete. In this way, Moon is a dark reflection of John Marston. Both men are relics of a dying world. Both are desperate to hold on to a way of life that's slipping away. But while John tries to adapt, to build something new, Moon retreats into paranoia and hate. He becomes a monument to bitterness, a warning about what happens when you let fear consume you. The game also hints at Moon's hypocrisy. He rails against outside forces while running a store that depends on those very forces. Where does he get his supplies? From corporations. Who protects his property rights? The government. Who keeps the roads safe so shipments can reach Armadillo? The same system he claims to hate. Moon is a parasite criticizing the host, a man who benefits from modernity while fantasizing about a purer, simpler past that never actually existed. And when you return to Armadillo later in the game, after the cholera outbreak, Moon is still there. His rants have gotten worse. The town is dying. People are coughing up blood in the streets, and Moon is still muttering about conspiracies. He hasn't learned anything. He hasn't grown. He's just angrier, more certain that the world is against him. Herbert Moon is chilling because he's realistic. Every small town in America has a Herbert Moon. The guy who runs the hardware store and casually drops slurs. The businessman who hands you a receipt and a conspiracy theory. The pillar of the community who is also its rotting foundation. Rockstar didn't have to put Moon in the game. They could have made him a generic shopkeeper, but they chose to make him a bigot, to force players to confront this aspect of the Old West, to remind us that the good old days were only good if you looked like Herbert Moon. And maybe that's the point. Red Dead Redemption is a game about dismantling myths. The myth of the noble outlaw. The myth of redemption through violence. And yes, the myth of the idyllic frontier. Herbert Moon is the game holding up a mirror and saying, this is what that world actually looked like. Not just cowboys and sunsets, also bigotry, paranoia, and small men with big hatreds running the general store. The Strange Man is Red Dead Redemption's most iconic character, and he only appears in a handful of missions. He doesn't shoot at you. He doesn't chase you through the night. He simply exists, watching, knowing, waiting, and that's precisely what makes him terrifying. He is the game's thesis statement made flesh, an embodiment of cosmic inevitability, moral judgment, and the inescapable nature of death itself. You first encounter the strange man in I Know You, a side mission that appears innocuous at first. You're riding through Thieves' Landing when you see him. He's dressed immaculately. Top hat, black suit, perfectly groomed facial hair. He looks like an undertaker, or a devil, or both. He stands unnaturally still in a town where everyone is in motion, drunk, fighting, stumbling. He doesn't belong, and he knows you know it. When you approach, he speaks with unnerving familiarity. "Ah, Mr. Marston, or should I say Mr. Killington, Mr. Moody, Mr. van der Linde?" He knows your aliases, he knows your past, he knows things about you that you haven't told anyone, and he smiles, not with warmth, but with the satisfaction of someone who has you figured out completely. He gives you moral tests disguised as errands. Save a nun from assault or let her die. Let a deadbeat father cheat a young couple or expose him. Free a debtor from his loan shark or let him be imprisoned. These aren't complex moral quandaries. The right choice is obvious, but the strange man doesn't care about right or wrong. He cares about whether John Marston, former outlaw, can actually change. Whether redemption is real or just performance. He frames these choices deliberately. He doesn't ask John to be good, he asks John to prove he's become good. Every test is a referendum on John's entire life. Can a man who murdered dozens in the name of Dutch van der Linde credibly claim to be reformed because he saved a nun? The strange man's presence suggests the answer is no. That redemption is a fairy tale we tell ourselves to sleep at night. When you complete the missions, the strange man reappears in I Know You Part 3 at Beecher's Hope, John's ranch, his sanctuary, the physical manifestation of his attempts at a normal life. The strange man shouldn't be here. This is private property. This is John's escape from his past. But there he is, standing by a tree, waiting. "This is a fine spot," he says, looking around. John asks who he is. The strange man smiles. "Oh, I'm an accountant, in a way." An accountant of what? Of souls, of debts, of moral balance sheets. Then he says something chilling. "I'll be seeing you again, Mr. Marston. This is a fine spot." And he walks away. John watches him disappear into the landscape, and that's it. The mission ends. The implication is clear. The strange man will return to this spot. And the only reason to return to someone's ranch after they're gone is to visit their grave. The strange man isn't just foreshadowing John's death. He's marking the location. He's already been to the funeral. Time, for him, is not linear. John's death is as much a historical fact as his birth. Who is the strange man? The game never tells us explicitly, but the evidence points to something supernatural. Some players believe he's death personified. Others think he's the devil collecting souls. Still others argue he's God, testing John's worthiness for salvation. The most unsettling interpretation is that he's all three, a cosmic force beyond human comprehension, indifferent to our labels, concerned only with the ledger of deeds and sins. There's visual evidence for the death theory. In Undead Nightmare, if you examine the graves in Blackwater, one of them bears the initials JM, John Marston, and it's dated 1911, the year John dies. But there's another grave next to it also marked 1911, and players have speculated it belongs to the strange man himself, as if death died when John did, as if the accountant balanced his books and closed shop. The devil theory is supported by the strange man's knowledge and his presence at moral crossroads. He knows John's every sin. He knows what John did as part of Dutch's gang. The murders, the robberies, the innocent lives destroyed. and he's offering John a chance to balance the scales, but it's a rigged game. No amount of good deeds can erase 20 years of bloodshed. The devil doesn't offer salvation. He offers the illusion of choice. The God theory is the most theologically complex. If the strange man is God, then he's not the benevolent father of Sunday sermons. He's the Old Testament God, wrathful, demanding, testing Abraham by asking him to sacrifice his son. The strange man tests John not out of cruelty, but to see if John has truly changed. And when John passes the tests, the strange man doesn't reward him. He simply acknowledges that John's transformation is real, even if it won't save him. God sees the good in John Marston, but God also sees that the machinery of consequence is already in motion. John will die at Beecher's Hope because that's justice. Not divine justice. Historical justice. The kind that doesn't care about your character arc. The strange man's knowledge of the future is presented as memory. When he says, "This is a fine spot," he's not predicting where John will be buried. He's remembering it. He's already attended the funeral. He already knows how this story ends. And he's giving John the courtesy of a warning, even though John can't do anything to change the outcome. This is cosmic horror wearing a top hat. The strange man represents the idea that your life is predetermined, that free will is an illusion, that you're hurtling toward an ending you cannot escape no matter how hard you try. John Marston can save every nun, expose every fraud, forgive every debtor, and it won't matter. The bullets from Ross's firing squad are already chambered, the trigger already pulled in a future that has already happened. The strange man doesn't need to threaten John. He doesn't need to wield power. He is power, the power of inevitability, of fate, of death itself. And what makes him so unsettling is that he's polite. He tips his hat. He speaks in measured tones. He treats John with a kind of melancholy respect, like a funeral director who knows you're here to plan your own service. In the end, the strange man represents the game's central thesis. You cannot outrun your past, you cannot escape your fate, and redemption is not about salvation. It's about accepting the consequences of who you were with dignity. John Marston will die. The strange man knows it. And now, so do you. If the world is rotting and the people are broken, then what about the actions we take within this nightmare? Red Dead Redemption forces you to participate in atrocities, to make moral compromises, to become complicit in systems of violence that grind human beings into meat. This isn't accidental game design, it's intentional commentary on how power works, how morality erodes, and how easy it is to become the monster you thought you were fighting. John Marston's journey into Mexico is the game's descent into hell. If the American West is morally compromised, Mexico in Red Dead Redemption is actively collapsing under the weight of tyranny, corruption, and revolutionary violence. And John, desperate to find Bill Williamson and Javier Escuela, wades into this nightmare and becomes a participant. Colonel Agustin Allende is the dictator controlling the region. He's grotesque in every sense, physically bloated, morally bankrupt, sexually predatory. He sits in his fortress surrounded by young women, clearly not there by choice, torturing prisoners, ordering executions, and treating human life as disposable. He's the game's clearest example of naked, uncomplicated evil. Allende's crimes are not subtle. He orders mass executions, he burns villages, he uses torture as entertainment. In one mission, he orders John to clear out a rebel hideout, and when John returns, Allende is overseeing the torture of prisoners. They're hanging from meat hooks, screaming, bleeding. Allende watches with mild interest, sipping wine. This is routine for him, but John helps. Him, John, the protagonist, the man trying to redeem himself, becomes an enforcer for a tyrant. He kills rebels, not soldiers, but farmers with rifles, desperate men fighting for their freedom. He burns their supplies. He hunts them like animals. And why? Because Allende promises to hand over Bill Williamson and Javier Escuella, John's old gang members. This is the game at its most morally complex. John is not a hero here. He's a mercenary. He's traded whatever moral high ground he had for the possibility of reuniting with his family. And the game doesn't let you opt out. You have to do these missions. You have to help Allende commit atrocities. The game forces you to be complicit, and then, inevitably, Allende betrays you. Of course he does. He was never going to honor his deal. He's a sadistic authoritarian who views everyone as tools. John realizes too late that he's been used, that he helped a monster consolidate power, that the rebels he killed were the good guys trying to overthrow a tyrant. John switches sides, joining Abraham Reyes and his revolutionary army. Reyes is presented initially as the hero, charismatic, idealistic, fighting for the people, and for a while, the game lets you believe in him. You help him recruit soldiers, attack Allende's forces, inspire the peasants to rise up. But the cracks appear quickly. Reyes is a womanizer who seduces women with promises of marriage and abandons them. He's vain, giving speeches about his own greatness while his soldiers do the dying. He's more interested in glory than governance, and by the game's end, when you see him in power, he's become exactly what he fought against. Another corrupt leader exploiting the people. The Mexican missions also feature some of the game's most harrowing violence. In the gates of El Presidio, you storm a prison to free rebels. The prison is packed with political prisoners, many of them starved and tortured. Allende's men have been using them for target practice. When you open the cells, skeletal figures stumble out barely alive. These aren't NPCs, they're monuments to suffering. There's also Luisa, the idealistic revolutionary who loves Reyes. She fights alongside him, risks her life for the cause, truly believes in the revolution. And in Mission, Must a Savior Die? She's shot defending Reyes, and she bleeds out in the dirt while Reyes stands over her, making speeches about sacrifice. He doesn't mourn her. He weaponizes her death for propaganda. Luisa's last words are a declaration of love for Reyes, and he barely acknowledges it. Her death is meaningless to him, just another bullet point in his rise to power. This is the game's cruelest commentary on revolution. The idealists die for the cause, and the opportunists take power. Luisa believed. She sacrificed everything, and Reyes used her death as a stepping stone to become the next Allende. The Mexico section is also saturated with sexual violence in a way that's deeply uncomfortable. Allende surrounds himself with young women who are clearly prisoners, forced into sexual servitude. You can rescue some of them when you storm his fortress, but most you can't. They remain in that hell, and the game doesn't follow up. John saves who he can and moves on because he has a mission to complete. The brothels in Mexico are grimmer than their American counterparts. The women look younger, more desperate. The pimps are more openly violent. And the game lets you engage with this system. You can hire prostitutes. You can watch men abuse them, but offers no mechanism to dismantle it. It's just background horror, ambient cruelty that you navigate but cannot change. And throughout all of this, John is silent about the larger moral implications. He doesn't give speeches condemning Allende. He doesn't try to save Mexico. He just wants Bill and Javier. He's laser-focused on his family and everything else. The torture, the executions, the sexual slavery is just noise. He'll work for anyone, kill anyone, ignore any atrocity, as long as it gets him closer to Abigail and Jack. This makes John Marston a tragic figure, but it also makes him complicit. The game asks, at what point does pursuing a noble goal through ignoble means make you the villain? John tells himself he's doing this for his family, but he's killed dozens of people who had nothing to do with this situation. Rebels, civilians, men who are just defending their homes. Their blood is on his hands, and I was trying to save my family doesn't wash it off. Mexico is Red Dead Redemption's heart of darkness, and John rose willingly into hell because he has no other choice. Or does he? The game never offers alternatives, but the question hangs there. Could John have refused? Could he have told the government to go to hell and run with his family? Maybe they'd have been caught. Maybe they'd have died. But at least John wouldn't have become a war criminal in the process. The Mexico section strips away any pretense of heroism. You are not saving the day. You're a gun for hire working for monsters, and when you switch sides, you're working for a different monster who just has better PR. There are no good choices here, only degrees of complicity. And the game forces you to see yourself as what you are, a killer whose justifications are paper thin. Red Dead Redemption's approach to violence is clinical and horrifying. The game treats human life as disposable, and the mechanics train you to think the same way. You can tie people to train tracks and watch them get obliterated. You can hogtie someone, throw them off a cliff, and listen to them scream on the way down. You can shoot a fleeing civilian in the back, loot their corpse, and the game rewards you with money and ammunition. There are no consequences beyond a temporary bounty that you can pay off with pocket change. The bounty system itself is deeply cynical. Kill a man in cold blood and you can erase the crime by paying the sheriff. Murder is just another transaction, a fine you pay like a parking ticket. The game is saying, in the West, justice is for sale, and if you have enough money, you can kill with impunity. The Deadeye mechanic makes killing even more casual. Slow down time, mark your targets, watch the bullets tear through flesh in slow motion. It's aestheticized violence, elegant brutality. The game makes murder beautiful, and then asks you to do it hundreds of times. By hour 20, you're gunning down civilians without thought, because the mechanics have trained you that human life is cheap, and players love it. Online forums are full of people sharing their sadistic creativity. I hogtied a nun and fed her to alligators. I placed 20 people on the train tracks and watched the carnage. I brought a tied-up lawman to the top of a mountain and threw him off. This isn't a minority of players. This is normal engagement with the game's systems. Red Dead Redemption normalizes atrocity. The violence is so constant, so easy, so consequence-free that it becomes mundane. You're not a monster for murdering dozens of people in a single session. You're just playing the game. The line between justified violence, story mission, and recreational violence, killing NPCs for fun, is blurry at best. And that's unsettling not because violence in games is inherently wrong, but because of how casual it all is. The game treats human life as disposable, and the mechanics train you to think the same way. Red Dead Redemption's treatment of women is bleak. The frontier, as presented, is a gauntlet of gendered violence where women exist to be saved, exploited or mourned, but never to have agency of their own. Prostitution is everywhere. Thieves Landing, Armadillo, Mexico. You can hire sex workers in every major settlement. The game treats this with a mix of dark humour, funny accents, stereotypical dialogue, and casual disregard. These women are part of the scenery, interactive objects you can purchase services from. The context matters. These aren't empowered sex workers operating by choice. They're desperate women in a brutal world. Some are clearly teenagers. Many are abused by their pimps, by customers, by society at large. The game shows you this suffering peripherally. You overhear conversations about violence against prostitutes. You see them being mistreated, but it doesn't ask you to care. In Mexico, the sexual exploitation is even more explicit. Allende surrounds himself with young women who are clearly not there by choice. They're prisoners dressed up as companions, forced to entertain him and his officers. When you storm his fortress, you can rescue some of them, but most you can't. They remain in that hell, and the game doesn't follow up. John saves who he can and moves on because he has a mission to complete. Bonnie McFarlane is one of the game's few substantial female characters, and even she exists primarily in relation to John. She's capable, runs a ranch, good with horses, tough as nails. But the game gives her no arc beyond pining for a married man she can't have. When John leaves, she watches him ride away, heartbroken, and that's it. Her story ends because John's story moved on. There's also the romantic subplot with Bonnie that's deeply uncomfortable. Bonnie clearly has feelings for John. She's kind to him, nurses him back to health, trusts him with her ranch, and John uses her. He takes her help, her resources, her labour, and gives nothing back. When it's time to leave, he just leaves. No goodbye worth a damn. No acknowledgement of what she means to him. She's a tool he needed, and now he doesn't. The game also features random encounters where you come across men assaulting women. You can intervene and save her, which the game treats as heroic. But the sheer frequency of these encounters is troubling. Every few hours of gameplay, another woman is being attacked. The frontier, as presented by the game, is a non-stop gauntlet of gendered violence. This pattern repeats throughout. Women exist to be saved, the damsel in distress missions, to be serviced by prostitutes, to be mourned, Luisa dying for Reyes, or to wait at home, Abigail. None of them have arcs independent of men. None of them drive the plot. They're narrative furniture, beautifully rendered and well voice acted, but furniture nonetheless. The game knows this. It knows it's depicting a sexist world. But it offers no alternative perspective, no character who challenges this reality. There's no woman who tells John that this system is broken, that women deserve better. The game observes historical sexism, but doesn't critique it, which means it tacitly endorses it. And because the game encourages player experimentation, some players take this to horrific extremes. You can hog-tie a prostitute and leave her on the train tracks. You can murder Bonnie in cold blood if you want. The game doesn't stop you. And while most players don't do this, the fact that you can, that the mechanics allow and even facilitate violence against women, is troubling. Red Dead Redemption presents a world where women are perpetual victims and men are perpetual victimizers, and it asks you to navigate that world without changing it. John Marston can kill hundreds of outlaws, but he can't dismantle the structural forces that make women vulnerable. He can save individual women from immediate danger, but he can't imagine a world where they wouldn't need saving. The game shows you systemic injustice against women, against indigenous people, against the poor, and then shrugs. This is just how the world is. Don't like it. Too bad. You can't change it. The best you can do is be a slightly better person within a fundamentally broken system, and even that won't save you in the end. After all the atrocities John commits in Mexico, after he helps tyrants and betrays rebels and guns down civilians, he finally gets what he came for, the location of his former gang members, Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela, and eventually Dutch van der Linde. These were John's brothers, his mentors, his family, and now he must hunt them down and kill them. The central horror of Red Dead Redemption isn't supernatural, it's that you spend the entire game hunting your former friends, Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela, Dutch van der Linde. These were John's brothers, his mentors, his family, and you, playing as John, are forced to track them down and destroy them. Bill Williamson is pathetic when you finally corner him at Fort Mercer. He's a shadow of whatever he used to be, paranoid, cruel, leading a gang of degenerates who rape and murder for sport. There's nothing redeemable left. And yet, when John confronts him, there's a flicker of their old relationship. Bill calls John by his first name. There's history between them, years of riding together, surviving together. And then John kills him, or Dutch kills him, and Bill dies in the dirt like a dog. Bill's death is meaningless. He doesn't get a dramatic final stand. He doesn't go out in a blaze of glory. He's just executed and forgotten. The game doesn't even linger on his corpse. Bill Williamson, former member of the van der Linde gang, dies unmourned and unremembered, and John feels nothing, or at least nothing he expresses. Maybe Bill deserved to die. Maybe he'd become too dangerous, too far gone. But killing your former friend with such cold efficiency carries a weight the game doesn't let you process. Javier Escuella is worse because he's clearly conflicted. When John captures him in Mexico, Javier begs for his life. He talks about the old days, about their friendship, about how they used to trust each other. Javier isn't irredeemably evil like Bill. He's a man who made bad choices and can't find a way out. He clings to the gang because it's all he knows, but you can see in his eyes that he knows it's over. He knows Dutch is insane. He knows they're all doomed, but he can't betray the gang, can't leave, can't imagine life beyond it. John hands Javier over to the government. He doesn't kill him personally, but it's functionally the same. Javier will be executed or rot in prison, and John watches Javier get dragged away, screaming, pleading, and John's face is stone, cold, empty. The man he rode with for years is being hauled off to his death, and John has already moved on. Next target. This is the horror of redemption through betrayal. John is saving his family by destroying his past, and that means destroying the people who were once his family. The government told John this explicitly. You can't have both lives. You can't be an outlaw and a family man. To save one, you have to kill the other. And John does it. He makes the choice. But the game doesn't let you feel good about it. Then there's Dutch van der Linde. Dutch raised John. He found John as a kid, taught him to read, gave him purpose. Dutch was a father figure, a mentor, a man John would have died for. And in the scene at Cochinay, Dutch's final hideout, you can see the love John still has for him warring with his obligation to the government. Dutch is clearly insane by this point. He's ranting about government conspiracies, about how they're all being hunted, about how civilization is a plague. He's grandiose and paranoid and broken, but he's also right about everything. The government is hunting them. Civilization is destroying them. The government agent is using John and will betray him. Dutch sees the future clearly, but his madness prevents him from doing anything about it. When the government storms the hideout, Dutch and John have a final conversation. Dutch asks John why he's doing this. John says he has no choice. It's you or my family. And Dutch, heartbroken, responds, "When I'm gone, they'll just find another monster. They'll find you, John." It's a curse and a prophecy. Dutch knows that John is doomed, that betraying the gang won't save him, and then Dutch walks to the edge of a cliff, looks back at John one last time and says his final words, "Our time has passed, John." And he jumps. He doesn't let them take him, doesn't let the government have the satisfaction of a capture. Dutch chooses his death, his final act of defiance against a world that won't let men like him exist. And John watches his father figure fall to his death, screaming on the way down, and you can see on John's face that a part of him died too. This is the game's most devastating moment. John has killed his friends, he's destroyed his past, he's done everything the government asked, and Dutch's last words tell him it was all for nothing. The government won't honour the deal. They'll come for John next. All this blood, all this betrayal, it won't save him. The game forces you to participate in this. You can't refuse these missions. You can't let Bill or Javier go. You can't talk Dutch down from the cliff. The game railroads you into betraying everyone you used to care about, and it makes you watch as they die, or are captured, or throw themselves off cliffs. You are complicit in this violence. You pull the triggers, you make the arrests, you watch them die. And the game asks, what does it do to a person to kill their family? Not literal family. John would never harm Abigail or Jack, but the gang was his family for 20 years. Bill, Javier, Dutch. These were his brothers, his father. And he hunts them like animals because the government told him to. There's a psychological horror here that the game doesn't fully explore but definitely hints at. John is traumatized by what he's doing. He has nightmares, mentioned in dialogue. He's distant with Abigail when he finally returns. He drinks more. He's fundamentally damaged by the experience of hunting his friends, and that damage never heals because he never gets therapy, never gets to process it. He just buries it and tries to move on. The game also doesn't give you many opportunities to mourn. Bill dies, and you immediately move to the next mission. Javier is captured and forgotten. Dutch kills himself, and the game jumps to John returning home. There's no time for grief, no space for reflection. You're too busy completing objectives, checking boxes, moving the plot forward. This mirrors John's emotional state. He can't afford to mourn, he has a job to do. So he compartmentalizes, pushes it down, becomes the government's hatchet man. And maybe that's the most chilling aspect, how easy it is for him, how quickly he adapts to hunting his friends, how efficiently he kills them. Is this growth, maturity, or is it just trauma response dissociation, the psychological armor you need to survive impossible moral choices? The game doesn't tell you. It just shows you John Marston hunting the people he loved, killing them or watching them die, and never quite processing what that's done to his soul. Dutch is dead. Bill is dead. Javier is captured. John has done everything the government asked of him. He's hunted his former brothers, betrayed his past, become the weapon they needed him to be, And now, finally, he gets his reward. He can go home. The entire structure of Red Dead Redemption is built on a foundation of betrayal. John Marston is doing all of this, hunting his former friends, committing atrocities in Mexico, risking his life 100 times over, because the government forced him to. They kidnapped his wife and son. They gave him a choice that wasn't a choice: work for us or your family dies. The government is represented by Edgar Ross, a federal agent who embodies everything wrong with institutional power. Ross is polite, professional, and utterly ruthless. He doesn't see himself as a villain. He sees himself as a pragmatist, a man doing unpleasant but necessary work. He uses John as a blunt instrument to clean up the last remnants of the Old West, and when John has served his purpose, Ross will discard him like trash. Ross's logic is cold and efficient. The frontier is closing, civilization is spreading, and men like John Marston, violent relics of a lawless past, have no place in the new America. They must be eliminated, not for justice, but for tidiness. The government doesn't care that John has reformed, that he's trying to be a good father and husband. All they see is a former outlaw, a loose end, a problem to be solved. The game gives you a few hours of peace at Beecher's Hope. You do ranch work, you teach Jack to hunt, you help Abigail with chores, you herd cattle, you break horses. For a brief, shining moment, it seems like John has actually achieved redemption. He's out, he's free, he's managed to build a life beyond violence. Then Ross comes back. The assault on Beecher's Hope is the game revealing its true genre. This was never an adventure. It was always a tragedy. John tells Abigail and Jack to run, to escape through the back while he holds off the army Ross has brought to kill him. Because it is an army, dozens of soldiers, federal agents, all there to execute one rancher. John buys his family time, he steps out of the barn and the game enters Deadeye. You, the player, can mark targets, you can shoot a few men. But there are too many. The screen fills with red markers, enemies you can't possibly kill. And then time runs out. The bullets hit, John falls, he dies in the dirt outside his barn, the peaceful life he built stained with his blood. This is the moment the game has been building towards since the opening cinematic. The strange man marked this spot. Dutch's last words predicted it. The entire story was an arrow pointing here, to this death, to this betrayal. Ross didn't come to arrest John. He came to execute him, because John Marston, former member of the Vanderlind gang, could never truly be free. He was always going to die violently because that's the nature of the life he lived. John Marston's death is not tragic because it's unfair, it's tragic because it's fair. He killed dozens of people, he robbed, he terrorized, he was part of Dutch's gang during their worst years, and yes, he was trying to change, trying to be better, trying to earn redemption. But redemption isn't something you earn through violence. You can't shoot your way to salvation. And the game, in its final brutal moment, makes this explicit. When John steps out of that barn and faces the firing squad, he's not dying for his sins. He's dying because the government decided he should die. His moral transformation is irrelevant. The strange man's tests were meaningless. Dutch's lessons didn't matter. John Marston dies because Edgar Ross needed a narrative victory, and John was the last chapter. And this is the horror at the heart of Red Dead Redemption. Justice doesn't exist. There is no cosmic balance. Good people die horribly. Bad people prosper. You can spend your whole life trying to atone, and it won't change the ledger. The universe doesn't care about your character arc, it just cares that you're in the way. After John dies, the game jumps forward 3 years. You play as Jack Marston, now a young man, and you learn what happened to Ross. He retired. He became a successful author. He lives comfortably on the proceeds of his memoir about taming the frontier. He's a celebrity, respected and honoured. Jack tracks him down on a duck hunting trip. Ross is old now, relaxed, enjoying his golden years. He doesn't recognise Jack at first. When Jack challenges him, saying Ross killed his father, Ross is dismissive. "Your father was an outlaw, I was doing my job." And here, the game gives you a choice. Let Ross walk away or kill him. Most players kill him. Jack shoots Ross, watches him fall into the river, watches the water carry his body away. Justice, of a sort. Revenge. But this is not a happy ending. Jack has become what John died trying to prevent. Another outlaw, another killer, another man doomed to die violently. The cycle continues. The past cannot be escaped. Jack is now a wanted man, likely to be hunted by the government just like his father. The Marston bloodline is cursed, doomed to repeat the same patterns of violence until there's no one left. The betrayal is complete. John did everything the government asked. He hunted his friends, he killed for them, he bled for them, and they murdered him anyway. Not because he broke his deal, he fulfilled it perfectly, but because Edgar Ross decided that John's existence was inconvenient. That's the horror of institutional power. It doesn't need a reason, it just needs leverage. Red Dead Redemption's government is realistic in the worst way. This is how power actually works. The state uses you and discards you. Your service is forgotten the moment you're no longer useful. Ross is rewarded for murder because he committed that murder on behalf of the right people. He gets a pension and a legacy. John gets a bullet. The game is making a statement about America itself. The nation was built on betrayals. Native Americans were betrayed. Settlers were betrayed. Allies were betrayed. Individuals like John Marston are betrayed. And the people doing the betraying write the history books, paint themselves as heroes, and retire comfortably. It's not just a story about a man trying to go straight. It's a story about a system designed to crush men like him, to extract their labour and then dispose of them when they're no longer useful. John Marston was doomed the moment he agreed to Ross's deal. His death was inevitable not because of fate or divine judgment, but because the United States government had no intention of honouring their agreement. The betrayal is the point. The game is titled Red Dead Redemption. But redemption is a lie. John cannot be redeemed because redemption requires forgiveness, and the world he lives in doesn't forgive. It only punishes. The title is ironic, bitter, a cruel joke at John's expense, and when Jack kills Ross, when he gets his revenge, he's not redeemed either. He's just another body in the river, another name on the list of men who died trying to escape a life that wouldn't let them go. Undead Nightmare is nominally a DLC expansion, a horror comedy romp where zombies overrun the Wild West and John Marston has to save the world from the apocalypse. It's campy, it's over the top, it's filled with references to horror movies and Pulp Fiction, and yet beneath the silliness, it literalizes the game's core themes of death, decay, and inevitability. The nightmare begins at Beecher's Hope. John is living peacefully with Abigail and Jack when Uncle bursts in, infected, screaming, his flesh rotting. He attacks Abigail, she turns, then Jack. Within minutes, John's family, the family he killed and died for, are zombies trying to eat him. He has to tie them up, cage them, watch them decay while he searches for a cure. This opening is viscerally horrifying. Everything John worked for, everyone he loved, is gone, transformed into monsters, and he can't even mercy kill them because there might be a cure, might be hope. So he leaves them there, moaning and thrashing while he rides out into a world that's falling apart. The West is infested. Towns are overrun. Survivors huddle in churches and forts, barely holding on. The dead rise from their graves and hunt the living. And John, exhausted and traumatized, is once again forced to be a hero. He clears towns. He saves survivors. He fights hordes of undead with increasingly desperate measures. Undead Nightmare isn't really about zombies. It's about the past refusing to stay buried. It's about old sins rising from their graves. It's about how violence, once unleashed, cannot be contained. The dead in this DLC are literally the ghosts of the West. Gunslingers, criminals, victims of violence, all coming back to demand payment for the blood debt owed them. John repeatedly asks why this is happening. NPCs offer theories: a plague, God's wrath, a biblical apocalypse. But the answer the game hints at is more personal. This is happening because men like John Marston made it inevitable. The West was built on mass graves, Native American genocide, outlaw shootouts, government massacres. The land is soaked in blood, and now that blood is refusing to stay down. There are deeply unsettling moments scattered throughout. Mother Superior. You encounter a nun who's been bitten. She begs you not to tell anyone, trying to hide her infection. By the time you return, she's turned and is eating her fellow sisters. You have to kill an entire convent of infected nuns. The horror here is multi-layered. These are holy women, brides of Christ, reduced to cannibalistic monsters. The sacred made profane. The Mother Superior's initial denial, her desperate hope that she can hide what's happening to her, makes it heartbreaking before it becomes horrifying. Seth's paradise. Remember Seth, the necrophiliac grave robber? In Undead Nightmare, he's thriving. The apocalypse is his paradise because now the dead walk, and Seth can have relationships with them while they're mobile. It's played for dark comedy, but the implications are nauseating. Seth has sex with zombies. He keeps them tied up in his lair. He talks to them, dresses them, treats them as companions. The game shows you just enough to understand without being explicit, which somehow makes it worse. Missing persons. You find survivors who've been separated from their families. You reunite them, and it feels heroic. Then you return to the same town days later and find those families turned, eating each other. Your good deed doomed them. The reunion gave them false hope, made them stay in one place, and the infection found them. Kindness doesn't save people. Heroism doesn't matter. Death finds everyone eventually. The Four Horses of the Apocalypse. The DLC features supernatural horses, war, pestilence, famine and death that you can tame and ride. They're beautiful, powerful, otherworldly. But they're also explicitly apocalyptic. By riding Death's horse, you're literally embodying the end of the world. You become the thing you're fighting against. The game makes you the horseman of the apocalypse, and it's treated as a reward, a prize to unlock. Sasquatch Extinction. You hunt what you think is a monster. You kill it, and then you find its family, gentle, intelligent creatures who are just trying to survive in the woods, bothering no one. They speak. They plead for their lives. But you've already killed most of them. The last Sasquatch, wounded and dying, sobs. Why? Why would you do this? and there's no answer. You killed them because the game told you to, because you thought they were enemies. But they weren't. They were the last of their kind, a species as endangered as the buffalo, and you just made them extinct. The Sasquatch moment is Undead Nightmare's cruelest trick. In a DLC about fighting literal monsters, the most monstrous thing you do is drive an innocent species to extinction out of ignorance and bloodlust. It's a microcosm of the entire Red Dead series. Violence justified by fear and assumption, leading to atrocities that cannot be undone. You can't bring the Sasquatch back. You murdered them all. Their blood is on your hands, and unlike the zombies, who are already dead, these were living, thinking beings with families, with feelings, with a right to exist. And it's optional. The game doesn't force you to hunt the Sasquatch. You do it because there's a challenge, because there are achievements, because the game incentivizes hunting everything that moves. The Sasquatch genocide is player-driven. You chose this. The game just made it possible. Eventually, John discovers the source of the plague. Someone stole an ancient Aztec mask from a woman named Ayauteotl. The mask is cursed, and its theft has unleashed the dead. John has to retrieve the mask, return it, and break the curse. When he finally does, the nightmare ends. The undead fall. Abigail and Jack are cured. Beecher's hope is peaceful again. John has saved the world. But then, in the DLC's final moments, John goes to check on the mask, make sure it's secure. He touches it, and the screen goes black. When the image returns, John is a zombie. He's infected, mindless, stumbling through Beecher's hope. The apocalypse has started again, and this time, John is the first victim. The DLC ends with John Marston, undead, wandering the ranch he died to protect, trapped in a nightmare that will never end. This ending strips away agency. John saved the world. He did everything right, and it didn't matter. The curse claimed him anyway. He's trapped in an eternal loop, alive, dead, undead, forever. It's a literalization of his fate in the main game. No matter what he does, no matter how hard he fights, John Marston is doomed. But there's another layer. Undead Nightmare is non-canon, a what-if scenario that exists outside the main story. But thematically, it's the truest version of John's fate. In the main game, he dies and that's it. In Undead Nightmare, he dies and comes back as a monster. He's denied even the peace of death. This is the ultimate nightmare. Eternal undeath, trapped in your own rotting body, unable to rest, unable to escape, forced to wander the world you try to save as the very thing you fought against. Undead. Nightmare makes explicit what the main game only implies. Death is not the end. Suffering doesn't stop when you die. You rise again, twisted and broken, to inflict pain on the people you loved. The West is haunted, and it always will be, because the violence it was founded on can never truly be buried. The dead don't stay dead. They come back, and when they do, they're hungry. Red Dead Redemption is fundamentally a nihilistic game. It says, nothing you do matters. You cannot change. You cannot escape. You cannot win. The best you can hope for is to die, with dignity. And even that is denied to most. Every character is trapped by their past. John is forced back into violence. Bill has become a bandit lord, unable to imagine life beyond crime. Javier is a killer for hire, his revolutionary ideals abandoned. Dutch is a madman screaming about government conspiracies from a mountaintop hideout. Abigail and Jack are hostages to John's past and future victims of it. The game's nihilism extends to its side missions. You help people, but it rarely matters. You save a drowning man and he gets robbed a day later. You reunite a family and they're killed by bandits. You stop a crime and 3 more happen before you leave town. The West is a machine that generates suffering, and your heroism is a drop in an ocean of misery. There's a random encounter where you can help a stranded traveller by giving him a ride. He thanks you profusely. Later you find him again. He's been murdered, robbed, left in a ditch. Your kindness extended his life by maybe a few hours, maybe a day. The West killed him anyway. Another encounter. You save a woman from kidnappers. She's grateful, says she'll never forget you. The next time you see her, she's back at her ranch and she doesn't recognize you. Or she does, but she's too traumatized to acknowledge it. Either way, the heroic rescue meant nothing in the long term. She's damaged, probably forever, and you riding in with guns blazing didn't fix that. The achievements incentivize mass slaughter. Kill 20 bears, skin 18 elk, hunt every species to completion. You're not surviving. You're systematically wiping out populations because you want a new outfit. This is manifest destiny in miniature. Take everything, kill everything, use it all up and move on. The land will be empty when you're done, but at least you'll have a nice gun belt. The passage of time drives this home. The game is set in 1911. The frontier is closing. The outlaws are dying. The government is taking over. Automobiles are replacing horses. Cities are replacing towns. None of it is presented as progress. It's just change, neutral and uncaring. John Marston is trying to build a farm in a world that's industrializing. He's using outmoded methods to chase an outdated dream. And even if Ross hadn't killed him, even if he'd lived to old age, he'd have watched Beecher's hope fail. The railroad would have bought his land for pennies. Corporations would have monopolized the cattle industry. Drought would have destroyed his crops. The bank would have foreclosed. He'd have died broke, obsolete, irrelevant. The West that John is trying to preserve, the West of independent ranchers and self-made men, never really existed. It was always a myth, a marketing pitch to get people to move west and die in droves while railroad barons got rich off their labour. John is trying to live a lie, and the game knows it, and it lets him fail anyway. This makes Red Dead Redemption profoundly tragic. It's about people fighting for a future they'll never have, believing in promises that will never be kept, loving people they're going to lose. And the game doesn't comfort you. It doesn't say, but their struggle had meaning. It simply shows you their struggle and their inevitable defeat, and asks you to bear witness. The game also asks uncomfortable questions about complicity. You, the player, are having fun. You're enjoying the beautiful landscapes, the satisfying gunplay, the compelling story. You're role-playing as an outlaw, robbing trains, shooting lawmen, living a fantasy of frontier freedom. And the game lets you have that fun while simultaneously showing you that this fantasy's built on corpses. Every time you loot a body, you're participating in a tradition of taking from the dead. Every time you steal a horse, you're enacting theft as a legitimate survival strategy. Every time you shoot a Mexican soldier, you're part of America's long history of intervention and violence south of the border. The game doesn't stop you. It enables you, and then it asks, does this make you uncomfortable? Should it? Red Dead Redemption gives you the cowboy power fantasy and then deconstructs it from the inside. It lets you feel like a badass gunslinger and then shows you that gunslingers die young, hated, and alone. It lets you believe in redemption and then murders you in your barn. The game is a trap. and you walked into it willingly, and now you have to live with what that means. This is nihilism as narrative structure. The game has no happy ending. It has an ending where the protagonist dies, and his son becomes what the protagonist died trying to prevent. It's a tragedy where the lesson is, there is no lesson. You can't learn your way out of this. You can't outsmart it. You can't change it. The world is broken, and you trying to fix your corner of it won't save you. Red Dead Redemption ends where it began, with death. John Marston dies where the strange man said he would, his family flees, and Jack becomes a killer to avenge him. The cycle continues. The past is never buried. Redemption is a fantasy, and this is the most honest Western ever made. The Old West wasn't noble, it wasn't heroic, it was violent, racist, brutal, and doomed. It was a meat grinder that consumed millions of lives. Indigenous peoples genocided, immigrants exploited, women brutalized, men worked to death or shot in the street. The golden age of America was golden only for a tiny fraction of people, and even they lived in constant fear of losing what they had. Red Dead Redemption doesn't glorify that world, it autopsies it. It shows you the corpse and tells you, this is what your mythology was built on. Death, betrayal, and the slow rot of everything you claim to value. The cowboys you idolize were murderers. The lawmen were thugs with badges. The ranchers were squatting on stolen land. The towns were dying of plague. The dream was always a lie. And yet, we still yearn for it. We still play these games, watch these movies, consume these stories about the Old West because some part of us wants to believe in the myth. We want to believe that there was once a time when things were simpler, when a man could make his own way, when freedom meant something. We want to believe that we, unlike John Marston, could survive out there, that we would be the exception. But Red Dead Redemption says no, you wouldn't survive. You'd die of cholera, or get shot over a poker game, or freeze to death in winter, or starve when your crops failed. And even if you were strong enough, smart enough, lucky enough to make it, the government would come for you anyway. Because the West wasn't tamed by rugged individuals, it was conquered by institutions, by corporations, by the systematic application of state violence against anyone who didn't comply. The game is honest in a way that most Westerns aren't. It strips away the romanticism of the genre and shows you the rot beneath. It asks you to love John Marston, and you do, because he's well written and well acted and genuinely trying to be better, and then it kills him in front of you. Not because he deserved it, but because that's what happens to people like him in a world like this. And when you finish the game, when Jack pulls the trigger and Ross falls into the river, when the screen fades to black and the credits roll, you're left with a question. What was it all for? And the game's answer, delivered across 60 hours of gameplay and 100 corpses, is simple and terrible. Nothing. It was for nothing. John saved his family, but they're broken. He killed his friends, but it didn't redeem him. He worked for the government, but they murdered him anyway. He tried to build a life, but external forces destroyed it. He died believing that Jack would have a better future, and Jack's future is vengeance and violence and probably an early grave. This is Red Dead Redemption's final message. The American dream is a lie that kills everyone who believes in it. You can't redeem yourself through hard work. You can't earn your freedom through violence. You can't escape your past. And even if you could do all of those things, the system would still crush you. Because the system exists to crush people like you. The game is a lament for a world that never existed, and a condemnation of the world that did. It's a horror story wearing a cowboy hat, and the most terrifying thing about it is that every word is true